Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Big Home Ed Conversations. My name is Kelly Rigg. I'm a home ed mum of two and a qualified mindset and ADHD coach. I'm passionate about supporting parents and neurodivergent families as they navigate children not okay at school and ultimately then the transition from mainstream schooling into home education. With what began as honest, heartfelt talks around the coffee table, this podcast has now grown into a space where hundreds of listeners now tune in for real, unfiltered conversations about alternative education mindset and educational philosophies. We cut through the noise and focus on what really matters to home educating families. As you all know, this season has been sponsored by Strew, a home educating logging app that basically has been designed by a home educating mum and her brother. They really felt that it was high time that we had an app that was built by people who are home educating in the UK and to support our community. And what I really love about this app is that it's really been designed with that in mind and that they are developing features all the time. Now, we've obviously been telling you a little bit about it every single week. And as we have been coming up against any kind of little teeny weeny bugs or we've got anything that we'd like it to have, we've been feeding back to Woody, who is the developer, so her brother. So Kaylee is the mum and Woody is the brother. But they have been taking on board all of our ideas and are literally working to add them and create more feature-rich opportunities for you to use going forward. They are so open to our ideas and needs and are really keen to make sure that this app becomes something which is just the most helpful thing in your back pocket. So if you are considering giving it a go, download it, use our code BigHomeEdPodcast so that you can kind of show where you found it. And ultimately, just give it a whirl. It's got a free trial on there. Give it a try and see whether or not it suits you. Obviously, none of us have to do anything that doesn't feel right for us. If this sort of thing isn't your system and this isn't how you'd like to be doing it, then fair enough. Not everybody likes to keep track of things in this way, but I know that I've really enjoyed having this lovely feed of imagery. Like I take photos of a lot of what we do. So I can look back and just like scroll through the memories. But instead of them all just being in my phone, I've now got like notes against them that help me to remember exactly what we covered during that window, and what kind of things that they learned, the ways they surprised me, the things that they said. And that's really lovely for me because my memory isn't great by anybody else. And it's not just about making sure my future LA report is good. That's got nothing to do with it, really. My goal here is to make sure that I've got something really beautiful to look back on, my memories of their childhood, of what they've been up to. Now, getting on with what we're doing today, this is an interview that I did with Jenn a few days ago, and I'm extremely excited to share it with you. So Jenn Hodge is the founder of Doing Education Differently. She is a leading voice in neurodiversity and education reform and has been at the absolute forefront of the fight against what was the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill and is now the Act. She is obviously continuing to fight alongside us to make sure that as this Act comes into play, that it is legal and it's actually doing the right thing for our kids. So she's an incredible advocate and she's incredibly empowering. And this interview just really was the most incredible chat. So I hope you enjoy it. Buckle in, get settled in, and we'll see you at the other end. Hello, Jenn. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us today. In the past, we've covered the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill throughout its journey, as often as we managed to get kind of mostly Wendy from Education Otherwise on to come and sort of give us an update on what she was doing in regards to kind of fighting it and campaigning against it. But I know that you've also been extremely busy for the past couple of years, really fighting this one and trying to help the community to fight back. And we are at sort of sad times, I think, at the moment that we're not feeling particularly well heard, I think, as a community. I think it's a real shame that we're still kind of now seeing it actually being passed officially this week and getting the royal assent. But how must you be feeling right now? I'd love to know more about what's going on your side of things. You must be feeling devastated, really.
Well, I don't know. I have very mixed feelings. I think I always knew it was going to happen. I wasn't in the camp of, don't get me wrong, I absolutely believed in and continue to believe in all the action we're doing. However, it would have taken something quite big to stop it going through. I absolutely hoped we could have got it more heavily amended and kind of more pro home education, pro family choice.
Yeah.
But I did know it would go, I did imagine it was going to go through in some shape or form. Interestingly, I think, and this is what I'm trying to communicate definitely to people who kind of check out my content online, is that it gives us something like it's this fear, isn't it? It's the fear of the unknown is absolutely debilitating. And I think home educators have always had this hanging over them like a shadow. I've been home educating for over 18 years, and it was always this, is this going to suddenly change? And the threat of it's been there for so long now, of when legislation will change. Will this come in? Which government's coming into power? How can you vote tactically, sorry, not tactfully,
Mm.
tactically, to do the best for home education? And now it's here. And I do think actually that sometimes it's better, not it's good that the law's in place, but it's almost, if it's going to happen, at least we can stop fretting about, is it going to happen, isn't it going to happen,
Mm.
and we can start doing something about it.
Yeah.
Which, and for something, yes, our voices haven't been heard enough, but now we were just voices before, whereas now what we're going to have is hard evidence.
Yeah.
And that's going to be really hard to ignore, because
Yeah.
before, I think our community has been sold somewhat of, it's a bit wishy-washy, and it's very lovely that home educators want to choose to live this life, but really, and we've been, there's been lots of children kind of saying, I don't want my rights taken away, and da 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 da. But in fact, it's really hard for children to voice a potential harm,
Yes.
particularly for children, because you don't really want them to think that there's going to be potential harm. You don't want to
Yeah.
be sitting there with your child and saying, I think this is going to be really, really awful for you. What do you
No.
think about it? Because why would you do
Yeah.
that as a parent? So what will happen is, when things start to go wrong, as they invariably will, we will have hard evidence, we will have strong voices, and they will be a lot harder to ignore.
Yeah. And I think obviously I know that from talking to Wendy, that we've had so many court cases over the years of children being treated badly in schools, possibly parents as well, obviously being treated badly as home educators, fighting for rights, getting a lot of kind of legal precedents in place. That you're right, as awful things may happen in the next years, obviously the potential data leaks and all the other things that we're all dreading and fearful of as
Mm.
well, that ultimately these things are likely to happen. And when they do, we then have the opportunity then to actually fight back and to say, well, you
Yeah,
had an opportunity to take
we
this
couldn't,
information.
yeah,
You've
yeah,
bungled it.
we
Like, now we can
mount a
fight back.
legal, yeah, we couldn't mount a legal challenge against a proposal.
No.
So now now it's an act. We will be able to mount legal challenges, and there are already ones in the pipeline. There's a number of kind of religious organisations who are very unhappy with the way it's been presented and the impacts it's going to have. There will certainly be something going forward from the home education community. There will probably be ones going forward from communities that are against digital ID, which we all
Yeah.
are, but there'll be specific organisations that's their focus.
Yeah.
So it's certainly, yes, we've got the ability to now start holding MPs accountable and saying, we warned you and you didn't listen. And I think that's going to be quite powerful.
Yes, I think so as well. I guess there's always the hope as well that in the years to come, obviously I'm well aware, I'm kind of associated to some degree in some of the sort of Surrey related kind of borough councils and things like that. I can see so many of them are under huge financial pressure right now to kind of sustain the staff they've got, to actually sustain the features and services they offer. That realistically, with home education being really reasonably quite a small number of children compared to the masses, that our local education authorities are really likely not to have the funding to put as much pressure on us as we've all kind of been led to fear is likely to be the case as well. So I think it would take a massive shift in government attention, which, let's face it, they're fighting fires on all fronts, aren't they? So I reasonably think this is sort of like one small group of kind of lords and etc.'s interests that they've really pushed through. But realistically, it's now going to be coming over to a new group of MPs and all that sort of, to actually kind of enact it and to do stuff with it. And that's hopefully going to shake it up a little bit, I think, with some of the changes that might then happen over the next few years in government and therefore what might come from it. It's a lot of confusion,
Yeah,
I
it's gonna,
suppose, right now, isn't it? You don't
yeah.
really know what they've been asking for and what they'll actually get and what people will actually end up having to do in the next few years. Really, none of us can really know that yet, can we?
Yeah, I think what we're definitely seeing is a very hardline Labour agenda,
Mm.
which Labour have always been. It's one size fits all everybody gets the same equality, and that's all very well, but we know that equality doesn't work. It's equity that we need. Everybody needs to access what works for them, because otherwise it's just disadvantage.
Yeah.
And the Labour Party will be very keen to push this, to get this going as quickly as possible, and they have said we'll fund it, we'll fund local authorities. But absolutely, how they, and I know, this is something that a lot of us feel and say, how they are going to dip into this magical pot of gold coins when you've got social services on their knees, you've got child services, as in, SEND on its knees, and you've got mental health, children's mental health on its knees, and you're going, well, how come you can find the money to pay for this process of local authority officers to kind of come out and assess homes and do all this when you can't do that? It's not really okay, is it? And I think that's going to make that's going to be something again when they start releasing figures and say, oh, we're going to pay for this and pay for this. And I think as well, it's whether, I think there could be delays. That Labour will try and push it through as much as possible, but with everything, with the political climate in the UK and overseas, there are a lot of things happening, as you say, and if they start taking precedent, if things wrap up in one direction or another, certainly it could delay it.
Yeah.
And the actual execution of it, I mean, I know Bridget Phillipson has referred quite a lot to kind of using AI, and I imagine, I don't have a magic spyglass into the future or a crystal ball, but I imagine it will be an online report, it will be assessed probably using AI tools to deal with the level of paperwork, but it's still the level. I mean, even the deregistration meetings. I mean, I work with the local authority all the time, and liaising with them is challenging enough to pin them down to time to talk to this or talk about this. The idea that they're going to have the ability to attend these deregistration meetings quickly and efficiently, it's just not. It's just all going to be very slow and grinding, I imagine.
I think so. I think,
But
even if
as you say, until we get that policy out.
Yeah. I think, even if you can see how many children must be on their not in school register, so sort of fantastical thing that I don't even know if it even really exists. But like, there's plenty of, like, in every home ed group we go to, there are at least a handful of people who are off the radar of their local authorities, that they've never been contacted. They don't know where they are, what they're doing. But when these children are registered with their GPs, they've been seen for injuries at hospital if they've had them, they are perfectly seen by society, obviously absolutely not at risk at all. But the local authority haven't chased up where they're receiving their education, in some cases for their entire educational career. Like, actually, these children can get all the way through and never be contacted. And so realistically, if that's happening, then where are they suddenly going to get the capacity to chase and follow up on everyone? I think it's a bit like the act of putting through this bill almost just feels like they needed to act. They needed to show that they were going to act, and to say they were going to do something. The actual making it happen is a whole other thing. But like every government propaganda and every kind of thing they say, it really depends, doesn't it, who's driving it and who really wants to make it happen, as to whether or not it ever actually does anything. So we have to wait and see, I suppose. But it's difficult.
Absolutely. But I do think there's a big appetite for this, and there's a big appetite to get kids back into school. And this is the difficulty. I don't agree that there was. I think the thing is that the case of Sarah Sharif, which I think is the thing that most people say, oh, they're trying to respond to that. That was a very useful, sadly, a tragic, but for them useful opportunity to springboard this bill, which would have been lined up years ago for them as soon as they got into power. And I do think they'll give it a good shot. It's just going to be whether their ducks line up in a row, and it's going to be whether can they get the staff. Are they expecting the pushback they're likely to get from the community? There are the vast majority. I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, at home ed groups, you're saying there's people that are off the radar. That is now the minority of people, because the vast majority are already on registers because they've been in school and come out. But everyone's going to have to be registered afresh, so they're going to have to take that potentially. I mean, we could be looking at 200,000 children. They're going to have to take everybody at kind of start afresh, and have the big stream of numbers that's coming out of school. So yes, it would be lovely to think that the act will be chugged up by bureaucracy and the LA and guidance and whether they manage it and money and staffing. However, I think it's really important that families don't do what a lot of families did before, which was when we started campaigning, there was still quite a large section of the community that just went, oh, it's never going to happen. Oh, it
Yes.
won't go through. Oh, it's never gone through before.
Yeah.
I think it's important that people take it seriously and
Yeah.
that not that they panic or worry, but that they engage and go,
Yeah.
because I
Join
think
the
it could be easy
campaigning.
to say it's never going to
No.
happen.
No, for
They
sure.
won't sort it out, because then that's when you can end up getting bit on the backside.
Yeah, that's the problem. I suppose if you sit on your hands and you're cavalier about it, then ultimately that is when they get their opportunities to push things through. That if we continue to maintain a wall up and saying,
Mm.
no, we're not happy about this and this is why, and here's a lot of very educated reasons as to why it's not okay,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
eventually it will hopefully barrage them back into realizing it's more effort than it's worth to try and actually get it
Mm.
to happen. And I think ultimately we as a community obviously know that this has got nothing to do with safeguarding. Truthfully, home
No.
education we know is not a safeguarding issue. And I think if we really wanted to um,
Hmm.
get fed up about it, then really the kind of I keep always get the phrase of get your own house in order comes into my head an awful lot. That we know
Oh,
that children in
100%. Yeah.
schools are a lot of children are at significant risk, even if they don't experience any abuse in the sense of sexual abuse or any other kind of abuses that we would obviously label as a crime. We know that obviously, especially when it comes to SEND, but generally children in general are experiencing a lot of harm in the form of education that is being offered in this country en masse. And what I can't possibly understand is how we can have a government wanting to govern further a group of people who have said, you know what, I appreciate what you're trying to do. We would like to do it differently. And that ultimately, I think it's such a difficult thing for them to be able to then govern that whilst then also taking into consideration how we like to do it and how we want to have our freedoms. I think that's going to be the biggest problem going forward for them, is how they do that fairly. Obviously, you've got the religious groups fighting back against it, which at least have kind of like a defined rights, I suppose, as a religious organization. I've always been thinking recently that the home education community almost needs to have its like set belief structure that is like defensible as a, these are our rights, this is how we choose to live our lives, and we need you to respect those boundaries. That it is so difficult to convey when the truth is that a lot of it is actually individual and it's more about people being able to live their own individual human lives. That it's such a complicated beast, this, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I mean, there's adults who are home educated that are fighting against the bill. I know people who are, second generation home educators, and babies being born and their parents were home
Mm,
educated, and their parents before had different kind of alternative education. And it is a culture, but
hmm.
as you say, it's not a culture like any other culture really.
Yeah.
It's a culture that's joined by kind of, yes, rooted in freedoms, rooted in human rights, rooted in the ability to parent and to take
Hmm.
care of your child and to execute your job properly.
Yeah.
And certainly I speak a lot about the failings of our mainstream school system and the amount of harm that happens to, as you say, to all children. The
Yeah.
amount of things they're exposed to. I mean, the level of age inappropriate sexual pressures and
Mm,
conversation and language and pressures, relationship pressures, and exposure to just everything
yeah.
that's not very
Yeah.
good about this world. The kind of gang
No.
cultures, even on a very minimal level of
Hmm.
how we interact with each other, of how we talk about other people. It staggers me that Keir
Yeah.
Starmer can stand up and talk about British values and like managing extremism and suggest that homes are dangerous and school is the safe place for that. I
Yeah.
find that the things that come out from them sometimes, you just go, do you
Hmm.
think we are all utterly devoid of any intelligence? Because we should, as a society, be actually moving towards a more kind, compassionate, respectful, autonomous, and safe community, rather
Hmm.
than almost what happens at the moment is this idea of the world is an awful place, so we best get them used to it from 4 years old because they're going to get
Yeah.
a bit of a shock otherwise.
Yeah.
Whereas my attitude is, let's change the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my
Yeah.
take on it.
No, like I know smiling, and I get why you're smiling, but ultimately you're so right. Like, we have this idea and this attitude that the goal is to teach them how to be bullies lest they be bullied. Like, teach them how to be competitive and to one up on other people lest other people one up on them. That ultimately, what are we trying to gain from creating a community and a human race that behaves that way? That ultimately, I mean, I did a talk recently about the kind of the history of education, and it's sort of very much all fresh in my head at the moment. But the whole kind of concept of even mainstream schooling being voted in before the general working man was even able to vote. This was decisions made for us as a people, that we were going to have this mass education that was 100% focused on deference to the church and to authority. It wanted everybody to be following the rules and going along with messaging that they wanted to offer us. Ultimately, I know that the reason why we have such a lot of pushback and fear around individuals educating their children based on their own autonomous needs is just of trust issues. Is like, when you want to kind of boil it down, it's trust issues. And it's also like an archaic kind of hang up from generations gone by that were all about order and keeping people in check and under control. It's like we can be as like controversial as we like here, but ultimately it's really being mindful of the fact that governance all comes down to trying to keep some sense of order. And whilst I can completely respect it as a need, considering population was booming back in the late 1800s, like there probably was a lot of fear around making sure that people did get a fair opportunity at education, and they did get an opportunity to better themselves and to fight back against dodgy contracts and poor working conditions and get rid of child labour. Like, all of these things were good things. It's not all bad. But ultimately, it's the hang-ups that have been had over the past 100 years and how it shifted. It's not boiled down to being a system that works well for our modern day. And with access to so much education and access to opportunities and resources, children don't need a school to do extremely well for themselves in life. But we do think that I do feel like the government is just almost just sticking their fingers in their ears. This is the way we're doing it, and we're going to carry on doing it this way, even though it is putting so much pressure on so many systems. As you say, mental health and welfare, all of it is struggling, partly in the way of the way that children are being educated, the way we were educated. Like, it's interesting, isn't it, really?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, what gets me is, at the end of the day, the system isn't working. And I think that it's really simple. If you want to look at, how do we decide if school is good or not? And you go, well, let's look at our adults, let's look at our society, and we're like, yeah, so we've still got a massive problem with the amount of people that are having to access welfare. We've got overpopulated prisons, overcrowded prisons that are full of ADHD humans that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
We've got health crises everywhere. We've got there are lots of areas that basically show lots of miserable people. There are more depressed adults. There's more adults on antidepressants. There are depressed children. There's all these things, and you're like, and what's the common denominator? I can tell you it's not that they were all home educated.
No.
It's because they all went to school. And that's the one key thing that we can change. And in fact, if we get school right, it will take a couple of generations. It will need to ripple out. But if we get school right and we meet children's needs and we recognize their strengths and we empower them and celebrate them and we give them strategies for their challenges, they will make better decisions as adults. They will make better decisions about who to be their partner. They will make better decisions about what job to do. They will be able to go, you know what? I can't work full time, but I can do this and I can do it this way. So I might need a bit of support with this, but I can contribute this. Or, I can do this, or I can work this way. And it solves so much. Like, so many of the problems we have in society is just because of that process of being broken through school. And the amount of adults I speak to who, even if they're not, I mean, the vast majority are neurodivergent, but even when they're not, they just kind of go, I survived school. Or they'll say, yes, school was great. And I'll be like, right, what did you do in your 20s? Oh yeah, I was mostly just drunk for it. And I was mostly just down there. And you're like, brilliant. So we as a society accept that as well. We kind of go, you know what, it's absolutely fine to define an entire decade of your life as going out and then drinking an insane amount and waking up not knowing where you are and all of these things, or spending loads of money on stuff or whatever. But we're kind of okay with that, and we're not going, could there be a different way? And this isn't about anti-drinking, and it's not about anti-having fun. It's about, actually, we've got 80 years if we're lucky. How do we want to spend it? What do we want to spend it doing? And why is it that we've got these kind of things happening with our youth when actually at that age you should be changing the world,
Yeah.
or doing lots of things, and
Yeah.
a lot of people are still stuck in this, feeling like they should go to university to get a degree they're probably never going to use and end up with loads of debt, or
Mhm.
trying to get into jobs and struggling and everything. It's
Yeah.
just, I just think that the things we teach, I think we learn far more at school than we're actually being taught in lessons, and this is the problem. Um, yeah, and it is all society control.
It's so interesting what you're saying there as well about that idea of like, it's almost as if we allow play in their 20s, but we don't allow play during their childhoods. They're almost like we say, no, your childhood is all about preparing to be an adult. But then when they become an adult officially, then it's like, cool, like you're out of school, you can do what you want, like go off, earn your money, have fun, drink, play, have fun. It's like your own problem now. You go and do what you want to do. But like, we almost feel like those first 18 years are like, we've got to put everything in their head so they can be successful. But actually, the truth is,
Mm,
we basically teach them to just memorize stuff and essentially teach them to dislike education, not want to continue to educate themselves, not be involved in their community, not actually contribute or have
mm,
autonomous involvement, not vote, not have anything to do with the running of the country or creating businesses or
mm.
working or having any kind of contribution at all. Now you're an adult, you don't even know what your value is. You don't know what your strengths are. I mean, it's all of it makes a lot of sense when you actually sit and rant about it a little bit. But
Yeah, and
it's so confusing that so many of us are stuck believing it's so different that actually it should be that way, how it is now. And it should be that they have their freedom when they first leave school and can go off and have their
mm,
fun and all the rest of it. That you're right. It's strange, isn't it? We seem to just have this real um, fixed idea of what's normal. And that's what I did when I grew up. It's like, yeah, but how did it serve you? Truly, like, how happy are you? How successful has your life really been? I mean, I only really found education again when I started home educating my kids. That their absolute love and passion for these very, really random subjects that they get into really sparked me to start
mm.
learning with them and made me realize how much I actually loved the act of learning. But really in this lovely projecty, eclectic-y kind of way that we do it, where you learn about what you want to learn about in that moment, take it where it goes. I mean, I learn new stuff alongside them every single day. But I dropped education in a big way when I left school. I was so over it. I just wanted to be free to just do whatever I wanted to do. And you're right, that doesn't turn you into someone who is an activist or works hard to support your community or does any charity work. That doesn't turn you into that person. It turns you into someone who wants to go off and have some fun and just make some money and burn it. That's all it really creates, is a
Yeah,
wish to go off and
and
be free.
yeah, absolutely. And you know what? There's a difference between like freedom and enjoyment and play and excitement and exploring
Mm,
and survival. And I think
yeah.
what we see in the UK, I don't think we necessarily see huge amounts of the former. We see an awful lot of burnt out adults
Yeah.
who are stressed by the time they've left. They leave college
Mm,
stressed, and
yeah.
so the lifestyle I'm kind of talking about is more one of surviving the day and getting through,
Mm,
waiting for the weekend, rather than actually
yeah.
a positive,
Yeah.
passionate, exciting. And I think there's a couple of things on what you said there that I'd like to raise. And the first thing is the lack of family. So
Mhm.
everything in our society is so devoid of family connections. And I think if you kind of look at like a lot of European societies where you've got, yes, people drink, yes, people party and have fun and whatever, but it's all, a lot of it's very deep rooted in family. You come together as
Mm,
families, as communities, as extended families, as friends, as
yeah,
neighbors.
it's
You eat together,
celebratory
you
and
drink together, you play music. Yeah, and you get that all the way through. So children are raised into that, and there's a lot of that feel, and you get to learn, elders are there to learn from, whether you sometimes ignore them or not, but you have that kind of, that's kind of who's raising you. And you kind of look at the UK, and we are so anti older people and
mhm,
so disconnected, for quite, a lot of disconnection between families and children. And I think a huge amount of it is actually that kind of kids starting school super early, being in really, we are so academic, we are so uniformed, we are so dress like this, stand like this, do this, sit there, do that, stand up. And the idea, the direction of Labour's going, let's get them in earlier. Let's get the, school-based nurseries. Let's get them in at 9 months old. Here's some money. Go back to work. Get your child in childcare. The whole thing is this separation of children and family, because actually, if they wanted to support children to get a decent breakfast in the morning, they'd make sure the families have more money, because the adults need to eat too. And in fact, it's better to have that time around the table in the morning. And yes, some people have to work, and that's absolutely fine. But as a society, we don't say to parents with young children, would you like to adjust your hours, or would you like to do this so that a few times a week you can start a bit later? Of course we don't.
No.
So we've got a whole kind of society that's very anti-family. And the other thing I just wanted to pick up on what you said is, I believe very much, and I know sometimes I upset teachers when I say this, and it's not anti-teacher, it's anti-school system. It's that school extinguishes the love of learning. That babies are born with a natural instinct to learn, and they it's everything to them. From the initial eye contact to observation and communication and everything, it's there. You don't need to create it.
No.
And when it's there through the toddler years, if you're at home playing, play groups, toddler groups, whatever, and then they start school, and learning is made to be a dirty word. It's made so, this is how we learn this thing. And well, what if I don't learn that way? Or what if I'm not engaged with that? And what if, and the lack of rest, the lack of play, the lack of the kind of, as you say, we are going to deliver this information in Victorian methods, but with some pretty pictures on the wall and a nice carpet. But essentially it's the same. And so then we end up going through this process, and then we have to try and correct that. It feels like, and the good schools I know, they do really good things, but I still go around them and think, you're just undoing what you're creating. Like, you're teaching them tolerance, but in fact, if you allowed them to dress how they wanted to, they would learn diversity through living. You don't need, if you make everyone uniform and say you're the same, and then you're like, and then 3 years later you're like, we're now going to teach you that not everyone's the same. And it's like, it's illogical. It's absolutely not fit for purpose anymore.
No.
And we need us to, and the thing is, if we get it right, then at some point this is all going to change, and hopefully it will. But what worries me is the hundreds of years it's going to take for us to actually, it's like, can we not just do it now? Can we not can we do away with the waiting and just, we've got
they need
the
some
knowledge,
strong ADHD minds to just get in there and get on with it, don't they?
100%. I'm here. I'm available.
Me
not
too.
really available. I have a very busy job looking after the young people that school have messed up. Not messed up, because they're amazing children, but the children that school have harmed. But I would love to be creating something that meant these children weren't harmed in the first place.
Yeah, I think we all would, really, wouldn't we? And I think what a lot of people, I think, maybe don't understand about the home educating community as a whole is how passionately we actually advocate for children's rights and educational rights. And we care an awful lot about what goes on in schools. And I know that there's certain people who I've tried to speak to about it in the past who have kids in school who are just like, yeah, but I've got a full-time job and they're all right. They seem to be getting on okay. And I'm just like, okay. And I was like, but just an FYI, it's still worth paying attention to this bill, because if they're ever not okay, then you have lost some of your ability to fight with that. Like it's really hard to get anybody who isn't already of an alternative education mindset sometimes to even really kind of take it on board and think about it. And it's a whole other conversation, I guess, for another time. But I suppose in a way that leads us quite nicely into what can people still do? What should we still be doing? What else can we do to try and keep our voices being heard? I know there was a survey that was being done by the Open University that lots of us have done. I think that's officially closed now. I think that was closed yesterday, wasn't it?
I think that's closed now, yeah.
But I know a lot of people are trying to get that completed. But what else can we do? What is there still to be done?
So I think definitely keeping pressure on MPs up is really important. The way I see it is almost MPs need to become our best pen pal or our best friend. We need to just be keeping in as regular contact with them as possible, even if it's just a case of keeping email correspondence up. And if they don't respond repeatedly, report them. You can report them to Parliament. There's a whole thing online to say they never respond. keep the pressure up on them, tell them what your concerns are. Now, part of me also feels, and this is going to sound a bit bizarre, but now is maybe a good time to also rest. We're coming into the summer. Nothing major is going to happen. When the consultations start coming out from the
Hmm.
government, absolutely we need to respond to them. But there is going to be times ahead where we're going to need really strong voices and bodies and people showing up. And I feel if we kind of expect everybody to keep that up ongoing forever, they're
Yeah.
going to burn out. So I
Yeah.
personally say, breathe out, try not to panic, try not to worry, enjoy the sunshine, respond to consultations when they start coming out, follow people. I mean, follow me, follow other people, the Home Education Action Group. There's various different people that have good information about the bill
Yeah.
and not bill, the act. So I got used to it, and
Mm.
just kind of take some time. The other thing that you can do, which doesn't make much, it's not too much of a hardship, is just starting to build community more. I know that home ed has always been notoriously great at community, but there are still, particularly with the insurge of new home educators, is kind of welcoming them into the community,
Yeah.
making sure they kind of know what's going on and what's gone on before. A lot of them won't know anything other than being heavily regulated. So
Yes.
maybe just talk to them about what it was like, what it's been like, how it's worked so well, and why we're trying to hold on to these kind of freedoms to be able to kind of go about our lives without this ridiculous oversight.
Yeah.
And that's a lovely thing to do, because that's not a hardship.
No.
And when things start happening, when we get guidance coming out, local authorities and families, then there's going to be other things to do, and it will involve, you might want to, if you're able to, you might want to financially support fundraising for a legal challenge. You might be a family that's negatively impacted and want to kind of be part of a legal challenge. You
Yeah.
might then, as things start changing, talking about it, posting it on social media, being really loud about the
Yeah.
things that aren't working or that are going wrong.
Hmm.
So there's going to be plenty. And being able to say to your MP, well, look, I warned you, this is happening. What are you
Yeah.
going to do about it? So for
Yeah.
now, definitely, and any petitions as well. So do
Mm.
stay in touch with your MP, sign petitions, respond to consultations. Other than
Yeah.
that, do take a breath out.
Yeah.
Try not to get too overwhelmed. I mean, I know fear is crippling, and
Yeah.
I see so much of it in the community, and it's not necessary. And the other thing I sometimes see in the community, and people say to me as well, is the amount of groups where people ask simple questions and other people will respond with oh, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't da 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 da, or you should know that, or blah blah blah. And I think
Mm.
it's really important to like retain your kindness and
Yeah.
remember that we are people ask a question. There's no such thing as a stupid question, let
No.
people ask questions and respond to them with kind of
Yeah.
openness and kindness. If you haven't
Yeah.
got anything good to say, just don't.
I think this is one of the things we have to be really mindful of as well, don't we? Because I think I had someone pull me up once on something I said somewhere, and like on a comment I made, and I was like, okay, that's fair enough. Thank you for airing your views on it. But it's important for us to have these discussions and for us to not operate within a vacuum where we just ping pong the same thoughts around. We are allowed to have conversations. We're allowed to discuss things, dispute things, understand things. Take your time to reason your arguments fairly and kindly. If you've got an alternate view, I think there is an awful lot of that in some of these groups. Actually, I agree that sometimes it can be very difficult for new people in the community to actually feel accepted, to help them to understand and to shift viewpoints. I mean, my husband, bless him, as so many husbands are kind of just on the other end of me researching and then feeding stuff back to him and asking him to get on board with the new way of thinking all the time. But there's an awful lot of people out there who will have chosen home education, or not necessarily even chosen it, but have had it rather thrust upon them, with children not okay at school, who maybe are wishing that their kid had been okay at school and that things could have carried on as they were, because they're still trying to keep a full-time job and they don't know how to make the
Yeah.
lovely ideals of the home ed kind of community happen under that pressure of very, very difficult, challenging behaviour from their child who's not okay, them not okay, their family situation not okay, finances not okay. Like at the end of the day, we have to have compassion for each other and to recognize that we're not all in the same boat, and we want to do good things for our kids. So that's something which bonds us, but we do also have to be open and mindful of that people have got different capacities and have had different amounts of information getting to them.
I think unfortunately it is a little bit Lord of the Flies, and it's a case of even when a new kind of community emerges, or things, numbers increase suddenly, and then people get involved in it who are perhaps very used to doing things a certain way or having a certain structure, whatever, it's natural for them to go, right, we're in charge, and we're going to give this advice, and you need to do it this way, and you need to, and that's a very natural human instinct. People that's how people work. There's
Mm,
leaders, there's followers, there's different types of people. But I
yeah.
think it's just, the home education community is really special. It's been really special for a number of years, and I have always felt like I've been part of something really multi-generational, and really touched by the fact that we've got people that have been doing this for so long, and standing up for rights and doing things differently and meeting needs. And I go to I'm speaking at a home ed conference on the 16th of May, the Learn Free conference in Coventry. It'd be great to see people there. And I've going there, like, I see people who are really different from me. And what I love about it is everyone's like, hey, hello. And it's so, everyone's so welcoming and accepting. And we're all here under the home ed banner, whether it's because
Yeah.
we're thinking about home ed, or we're new to it, or we're experienced home eders.
Mm,
And we can do that in a really open, like, yeah, okay, I know those people do things this way, and I know those people that have that kind of lifestyle, but we've all got our children's best interests at heart. Our children are all thriving. We're all different. And so I think I don't want to lose that. So I do hope
no.
that people can, that it's just that thing of just keep being. And if you see someone who's in a group, and a bit out on the outside of it, or struggling to speak to people, or maybe on an online space, and do say to them, you're doing great.
Mm,
You're doing great just by making this decision, just by trying, don't
yeah.
worry. And we all get things, goodness, I'm dyslexic, I get spellings. I have a couple of lovely people who regularly send me a private message and say, oh, Jen, spelt this wrong. And I'm like, okay, great. And I really value and appreciate that. What I don't value and appreciate is people who kind of comment and go, my goodness, if you spell like that, you're giving the home ed community a bad name.
Mm,
And it's comments like that, and I don't care. But there are
mm,
lots of new people to home eds who
yeah.
do care, and it can
Yeah.
really knock their confidence.
We've talked before about, I was joking with a friend last year about how we think when we first start home educating that school is the bar that we're supposed to be trying to hit. And then you spend some time home educating, and suddenly you realise that you're supposed to be vegan and do loads of environmental campaigning, and you're supposed to be making sure your children become
Absolutely.
activists one day. And you're like, wait, hang on a minute, the bar for home ed seems higher. It's like, what are we doing here? And it's so funny because essentially, like, if you actually stop and just think for a second that actually, yes, okay, all of these things would be lovely, but realistically, I'm operating within my own little neurospicy family who've all got issues with carrots, let alone like this rare plant down the road. And ultimately, I really do want to do lots of good for my community, but there really is only so much time in a day when I'm fielding 20,000 meltdowns. So if
Hmm.
it would be okay, can I just like do
Yeah,
as much good as I can do with my lovely little people, and just have a really great time learning with them and see what they make of it and enjoy our
yeah,
lives, and not actually have all these pressures that, yeah, again, another whole conversation for the time really, but it's so wonderful
yeah. And
kind of
after, yeah,
recognizing
and
that and
at the end of
accepting
the
it
day,
eventually.
yeah, and after a certain amount of years, you then do the flip side where you go, you know what? I've met the bar of school. I kind of overseeded the bar of school just by not sending my kids to school, and in fact, everything else is a win. So
Hmm.
I think you definitely go through that journey, don't you,
You
of
really
different
do.
things. I think one thing just to kind of add as we kind of probably wrap things up is, there is nothing to say that nothing good will come from this act. And I think it's very easy to kind of go, it's all doom and gloom, it's all going to be awful. You just don't know. And sometimes you need difficult things to happen to
Hmm.
get to the good bit. And
Yeah.
you need that kind of pendulum swing of, it's all been free and easy, then it's all been like, right, we need to regulate. You don't know, it will come down to rest somewhere, and
Yeah.
we don't know what will come for it. And there could actually be huge benefits. from these conversations, being aired,
Yeah.
coming out into the forefront, and recognizing, it may shine a massive spotlight on the harm that's going on in schools, because when home ed parents are going, my autistic child who is utterly burnt out and is, they want to visit us, we've now gone to court, or whatever the whole thing is, because I don't want to spread misery. Those situations, whilst horrible to have to go through, may change the face of everything. So
Yeah.
it's very easy, I think, for everybody to get very like, oh my God, this is the most awful thing. It's like, no, this isn't. This is just another chapter of the home education story in
Yeah.
this country. And we don't know where it's going to take us.
Yeah.
And it could be somewhere really good.
It
I'm not
could.
suggesting all of it will be, clearly, because
No.
otherwise I wouldn't do what I did. I do. But I think it's important to just assume the best and to go,
Yeah.
this might bring change in another way. This might propel communities to get together and get more involved in politics. This might form a new political group that come on and they absolutely shake the ground by changing things up.
Yeah.
I won't get drawn into conspiracy theories. I won't get drawn into there's no point in doing anything. We just need to do our best.
Yeah. I think that's really lovely. And I think you're right. I think there's so much potential here for us to continue to showcase how beautiful home education is as a choice for our children, and to see how well they thrive and how incredibly intelligent and capable they are. And the more of them that go through that process and are seen and heard, the harder it will become to argue that there's a problem here as well, which I think is really what we need, is that shift in public opinion, which is a gradual thing for sure. But the more of us who talk about it and actually share our experiences and campaign and talk to our MPs and get people on side, the more of that is spread. And you're right, it does change minds. I mean, we've seen it happen with people's gender equity and with people being allowed to love who they love. Like, all of these things do gradually shift in public opinion, and people are more accepting and open, understanding. And all we can hope is that eventually that will be the case. As you say, we'll change the world, Jen? One feeling at a time,
Yeah,
one issue at a
100%.
time. So,
I'm in.
yeah, we're all in, right? So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know you've got to run off and pick up kids and do things now. So enjoy, have a lovely afternoon and evening. And thank you so much for being on here chatting to us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Kelly. It's been fantastic.
You've been listening to the Big Home Ed Conversations podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Big Home Ed Podcast for updates. Also, check out our new website at bighomedpodcast.com. We'll be back next week to talk about our experiences bringing the topic of town planning and street furniture to our children. We hope to hear your experiences as well, so come talk to us about it on social media. Thanks for listening.